Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the series of 10 grape escape destinations to wine for in 2021. And we have this week Portugal and Greece today. So welcome, everybody. Before I introduce our speaker, I'd just like to point out to the chat facility on the right there, with a lot of you already found, loads of you have found already. 20 already saying hello from various parts of the world, such as Toronto, Saudi, and from Galway, Ireland. It's the first time we had anybody from Galway. Tracy there from England, and Isabel, Portuguese surname. Boa tarde a todos. And we have long-time friend Sushma from India, I believe he is. So do say hello, but more importantly, it's a place where you can pose questions in connection with the presentation we're about to hear. So we're delighted to have with us Madalena Vidigal, welcome, who runs a wine tourism blog called Entre Viñas. So if you want to check that out afterwards, Entre Viñas, we'll put it up on the chat so you can get the correct spelling. There's a H in the Portuguese viñas, not the Ñ as in Spain. So welcome, Madalena. Welcome to the program. I was looking at the weather forecast just now, and I see you've got some stormy weather.
I do. I'm just in the middle of a big storm. It's pouring rain right here in Lisbon, at least where I am, which is, well, normal for springtime in Portugal. Sometimes it rains. Yesterday was a beautiful sunshiny day, so that happens.
Okay, so just for those people who are watching, a reminder that the International Wine Tourism Conference was held in Portugal in 2011 in Porto. They didn't get to Lisbon, so perhaps on a future occasion, if and when the event returns to Portugal, we can include Lisbon and Lentejo and the whole of Portugal. So if the Portuguese Wine Tourism Board is watching, if you're interested, we're interested.
Hopefully.
Right, as always, kicking off with a poll question, which I'm going to pull in now. And here's the question. The oldest demarcated and regulated wine region in the world was set in 1756. Which was it? Was it A, Madeira, B, Bordeaux, 3, Cajati, or the Douro? The answer, as always, is in the presentation. So if you get the answer right, then you get the special prize. And if you don't get it right, then you go away with nothing. Only kidding. Okay, so few for Madeira, few for Bordeaux, few for Cajati, and 73% Douro. Well, let's see who was right. So, without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Madalena, who's going to show us Portugal as a great escape destination for 2021.
Thank you, Anthony. I'll show you the presentation. Well, first of all, thank you so much for everyone for registering for this webinar about Portugal, and thank you to IWINETC for giving me the opportunity to show off my beautiful wine country. And my mission today is to show you why Portugal should be your next wine destination, why should it be on your travel list. Even if not on 2021, we don't know how things will go, but hopefully anytime very, very soon. And today I plan to take you on a wine trip to Portugal with me. So next. So what's so special about Portugal? Actually, there's many, many special things about Portugal, but I'll try to sum it up. We are a very old country. The foundation of Portugal was actually in 1147, so in the 12th century. And Lisbon, the capital, is one of the oldest capitals in Europe, right after Athens. And we are located, for those who don't know, we are located on the North Hemisphere, right on the tip of Europe. We have only two borders, actually. On the east side, we have Spain. On the west side, we have the Atlantic Ocean. And the Atlantic Ocean, or that coast, represents almost 2,000 kilometers of sea coast. The climate here is a Mediterranean climate, mild temperatures, and we can enjoy almost 300 days of sun per year. Not the case today. It's very rainy today, but that's springtime in Portugal as well. We have a total area of 92,000 square kilometers, which can, I made a calculation, and Portugal could fit about 4 times inside Germany and around 100 times inside the United States. I know there's some people from Canada. Canada's a bit bigger, so you can imagine how many times Portugal could fit in one of those countries. And we have around 190,000 hectares of vineyard planted within the 14 different wine regions we have here in inland, and also the 2 group of islands. We also have 2 archipelagos. It's Madeira and the Azores, and we also produce wine there. Also about Portugal, we are the 11th biggest wine producer in the whole world. The history, just a little bit of history of wine in Portugal. And there are traces in your plantation here in this territory since the 2,000 years before Christ, brought by the Tartessos people. But then the Romans, they were the ones that are during the invasions in the whole Europe territory, back in the 15th century before Christ. They were definitely the biggest drivers of the wine culture and the culture of the vine here in Portugal, or the territory named Portugal. And they definitely developed a lot of very ancient techniques in winemaking that are still used today. Nowadays, in Portugal, we can count with more than 2,050 native grape varieties between white and red. And in terms of wine production, we produce red, white, rosé, sparkling wines, delicious sparkling wines, and 4 types of fortified wines. One of them, probably most of you know already, is the port wine, very well known worldwide. We also produce Madeira, almost as famous as port. Then we produce Muscatel, made of the grape Muscatel, and Carcavelos wine, which is from one of the smallest wine regions in the world, but in Portugal, definitely the smallest in the country. I'll show you a video now.
Have you ever combined textures, smells, and emotions? It's about connections and that endless joy. If we look at things with our own eyes, wine pairs with discovery. Wine pairs with Portugal.
So this video was made by the Tourism of Portugal and describes a little bit what Portugal is and what wine represents to our country. So I told you that my challenge or my plan today is to take you on a wine trip along Portugal. That is an image of Portugal, the country, and I can tell you that first of all, there are 3 international airports here in Portugal, one in Porto, one in Lisbon, and one in Faro. So it's very easy to rent a car, and I truly recommend you to rent a car to move around Portugal and then just drive to all the different wine regions. And I can tell you that if you draw a straight line from the point A down to the point H, we are talking about almost 7 hours driving. And from the ocean side to the border with Spain, we're talking about around 3 hours driving. So you can see now how small it is. But the beauty of Portugal is that no matter how small in dimension it is, there's a big diversity of landscape, of gastronomy, of different traditions, and different people as well. So I just draw itinerary, a trip from the Vino Verde, starting by the point A. Then we'll move down to the point B, which is the Porto City, also famous for the port wine, of course. Then we'll move a little bit in the interior of the country to the point C, which is the Douro Valley. Then driving down south to the number D for Douro Region. Moving again closer to the Atlantic Ocean, we will visit Baixo Region. And moving down south again to the capital of Portugal, Lisbon wine region. We then move to the very warm region, Lentejo, and we'll finish our trip in Algarve. So first stop, we will go to the Vino Verde region. And fun facts about the Vino Verde, which is a true fact, there's no such thing as a green wine. Vino Verde translates into green wine, and some of you may have heard about green wine. Once is the most exported kind of wine in Portugal, the most exported Portuguese wine, but there's no such thing as green wine. So Vino Verde, it's a region, not a type of wine. But what happens is this is the rainiest region in the country. It rains a lot all year long, even in summertime. So if you're planning to visit Vino Verde, bring some raincoat and rain boots, even though the sun shines there as well. And because it rains so much, there's a lot of green vegetation all over. So that's why it got the name also from the Vino Verde region. And the wines here, the grapes that grow here, are also very fruity, very crispy, very delicious kind of wines, and mostly the white wines. The 2 main grapes in this region is Alvarinho and Loureiro, 2 of the white grapes. And one of the best experiences that I suggest here in this region is definitely just relax and have a picnic in the middle of the green vineyards, because there's so much green vegetation around you. And also they created so many different training systems for the vineyards, like you see here in the picture. So it's not only the straight lines, there's also this kind of training system for the vineyards. You can enjoy the green landscape and enjoy your white wine from Vino Verde. And also there's delicious local sausages that you can taste. Moving on to Porto City. Fun fact about Porto City and the port wine. Wine, it's not produced in Porto City. It is actually produced in the Douro Valley, but we'll go there next. The fact is that back in the 1600s, when we were already producing port wine and we had need to sell it to other cities, to other ports, and to other countries, we had to transport the very big barrels from the Douro Valley down along the River Douro to the city. And in Porto City, there would be storage, they would age, and from there, they would be exported to other destinations. So they got the name, the port wine. The main grapes that we use to produce the port wine is Touriga Franca, Touriga Nacional, and Tinta Roriz. All of these are red grapes because most of our port wines are red, but we also produce very, very good white port wines, and you definitely should try one of those when you come to Portugal. One of the best experiences you can have in Porto City is to walk along the dark and moldy aisles of the port wine cellars. Just go underground, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and you feel you're doing a trip back in time. Talking about Douro Valley. So Douro Valley is definitely the oldest demarcated and regulated wine region in the world back in 1756. So this is the answer to the question, to the poll I had before. This is due to the fact that back in that year or that age, we were already producing port wine, we were already exporting port wine, and our prime minister by the time, Marquis of Pombal, decided there was this need to regulate and to legislate this kind of wine. So he limited the area that was defined to produce port wine, and only in that area we can produce port wine. But we also, in that region that you can see in the image, we also produce delicious Douro wines, so table wines, white and red, made mostly from Touriga Franca and Touriga Nacional for the red grapes, and Rabigato for the white wines. One of the best experiences I recommend you to do in Douro, well, going to Douro, it's already an overwhelming experience, especially as it is considered since 2004 a World Heritage Site by UNESCO. But one thing you can do is just to take a train ride along the vines and the river. So you see the river, you see the vines made by slopes, and most of those vines are made by hand, human hand. So it's hard work there, and you can take a train ride along the river, and it's an amazing. Going down south a little bit to the Douro region. And Douro region, as some people say, it's considered to be the Bourgogne of Portugal. They produce very, very elegant wines, and that's due to the fact that Douro is located very close to Serra da Estrela, which is our highest mountain in Portugal. It's called the Star Mountain, and the only place where it actually snows every year. You can go skiing up in that mountain. The soils around this area are mostly granite soils. So the wines are very mineral, very elegant, very balanced and smooth, made from mostly different grapes, but Touriga Nacional is one of them for the red grape, for the red wines, and Encruzado is a very floral and perfumed kind of white grape. One of the best experiences I recommend to do in Douro is to have a lunch in a Michelin star restaurant overlooking the vineyard. And that's why I recommend to have a lunch instead of a dinner, because you can enjoy the view during the sunlight. And yes, this is a very upscale experience, not for everyone, but I really want to show you that you can do a little bit of everything here in Portugal. You can have a simple picnic in the vineyard, or you can have a luxurious meal in the middle of the vineyards. Although most of our Michelin star restaurants are located in the big cities, Lisbon and Porto, we also have some good ones in the countryside. One thing I forgot to mention before, which is actually very, very important for the Portuguese wines, is that we have so many grapes, around 250, like I mentioned before. So we blend the grapes. It's very normal in Portugal to have about 3, 4, 5 different grapes in only one bottle. We believe that the wine gets a lot better if we use them all in a bottle. Moving closer to the Atlantic Ocean, to Bairrada. Bairrada is the area. It's very close to the area where we salt big part of the cod we eat, coming from Norway. So yes, I don't know if you heard about it, but we Portuguese are completely obsessed for cod. We love codfish. We eat a lot. We say we have 365 recipes of cod, one per each time of the year. So we eat a lot of it, but we don't fish it, although we have a very large sea territory. We import it, big part of it from Norway, but sometimes from Iceland or Canada as well. And we salt it here. This is a very old technique to preserve the fish in salt, where there were no refrigerating. And the fish and the cod fish is a very fat and meaty fish. So we can taste it either with white wines or with red grapes. And in this region, we have both very good, very good. For the red grapes, I suggest have Baga, and for the white ones is Cercial. One of the best experiences you can live here in Bairrada will be definitely tasting the iconic suckling pig in an old sparkling wine cellar, like here in the picture. So like I told you in the beginning, we do produce a lot of great wines, and sparkling wines are one of them. Here in Bairrada, we produce some of the best sparkling wines in Portugal. And we like to taste it with the suckling pig, which is an iconic food in Portugal. And because it's greasy and it's fat, pairs perfectly with the fizziness of the sparkling wines. And yes, I talk a lot about food, but coming to Portugal, tasting wine and not talking about food is just a mistake. So both come together and pair perfectly. Moving to Lisbon, and we arrived to the capital of the country, which is also the name of a wine region. And the whole area, on the whole region goes along the sea. So it's very much influenced by the sea breeze. And the wines here are very balanced, very fresh. The main grapes here are Arinto as a white grape and Castelão as a red grape. One of the best experiences you can have in Lisbon is to taste the pre-phylloxera wines planted in sand soil, specifically in a collage wine region, very small region within the Lisbon wine region. So I don't know if all of you, but I assume that most of you have heard of phylloxera. So it was a bug that devastated big part of the vineyards in Europe back in the mid-19th century, and it destroyed also a big part of the vineyards here in Portugal. Some of the vineyards survived, and here in Colares, very small region, you have the old or the pre-phylloxera vineyards planted in sand soil, and it was actually due to the sand soil that the bug didn't affect it, and the vineyards survived. So as they are planted in sand soil and planted so close to the sea, actually Colares is in the western point of Portugal, the wines are very unique, a lot of acidity, but also some delicious saltiness in the wine in the good way. So we arrived, we kept driving all this way. We can drive all this way, by the way. We arrived to very warm Alentejo. Actually, it's very hot Alentejo. This region can easily reach the 50 Celsius in summertime. So it's a very hot and dry region and also flat region. So it's not a hilly. Our hilly part of the country, a hilly system, it's up in the north. Fun fact about Alentejo. This is the place of origin of more than 70% of the world's cork. So yes, every time you pop a bottle, you notice that the top of the bottle is made of cork, and now you'll remember that probably that cork comes from Portugal. And the cork can also be used for other purposes, like flooring, construction, bags, shoes, everything. So next time you see a cork piece, you'll remember of me and Portugal. The main grapes here in Alentejo, and as hot and dry it is, the wines here in Alentejo tend to be full-bodied and dense and a bit alcoholic, you know, very strong kind of wine if you like this kind of wine. So you have to taste the ones in Alentejo. The main red grape here is Alicante Boucher, also a grape with a lot of color. And the white grape, it's Antão Vaz. One of the best experiences you can have in Alentejo is to visit and taste, of course, an amphora wine cellar. So this is one of the amazing legacies that the Romans brought here to Portugal. Amphora are, like in the picture, are these big clay pots where we still produce. There's some towns, little towns in Alentejo that keep exactly the same ancestral technique and method to produce wine. So the wines are very different, very unique, and you should go to one of these old cellars to taste it. And we arrived to our last destination of today. We arrived to the very warm Algarve. And Algarve is definitely the one of the favorite summer destinations to all the Portuguese families, but also many families in Europe, namely British families, German, Dutch, Swedish, that come to Portugal for the weather and the beautiful beaches we have here. One of the fun facts regarding wine, and some of you recognize the pop star Sir Cliff Richard, is one of the oldest, not in terms of age, but in terms of winemaking producers here in Algarve. Yes, it is a fun fact indeed. But I'm sure that this was a good way also to promote and to show how Algarve region is also a great wine producer. Nowadays, there's many other Portuguese producers using this region. One of the main red grapes, it's Negra Mole. And I think that the wines made from the Negra Mole are somehow similar to Pinot Noir, the Portuguese Pinot Noir, very light, very smooth, and very elegant wines, and also Síria for the white grapes. One of the best experiences I recommend, and I've done it myself, well, all of the others I've done it myself, it's a wine tasting under a 2,000 years old olive tree. Actually, is the one I show you there in the picture. Because another thing you need to know about Portuguese food or Portuguese gastronomy is that olive oil, it's our main source of fat. Together with Spain and Greece and Italy or Turkey, we are some of the biggest producers of olive oil in the whole world. To that fact, we call it our liquid gold. We use it for everything, for cooking, of course, we use it for seasoning, and then we use it for soaps, cosmetics, skin moisturizers, for everything. So we always use olive oil, and here in Portugal, we have very, very old olive trees, like a 2,000 years old one. I'll leave you with another video to finish my presentation.
Do you ever gaze at the shape of a wave and at the shape of a grape? They are both waiting for us to shape them into something we love. If we look at things with the eyes of curiosity, wine pairs with adventure. Wine pairs with Portugal.
So apart from all the great food, I forget to mention a very, very important one, because with all this seacoast, of course, we have a huge variety of fresh fish, seafood. So this is definitely a paradise for all the seafood lovers, with our amazing wines for all the different tastes. Muito obrigada. Thank you so much for listening. And hopefully you can come to visit Portugal live anytime soon. And I'll be here to host you. Thank you so much. And please, if you have any questions, just let me know.
Okay, great. Let's stop the slides. Okay. So if you have any questions, please post them. While you're thinking of a question or two, I've got one for you, Madalena.
Yes,
because you said that quite often the Portuguese wines blended, 3, 4, 5 different grape varieties. I remember back when we were in Porto, in the Douro Valley, that the vineyards are all mixed up with different grape varieties.
Yes.
And so my question is, because I can't remember what the answer is, do they harvest everything in one go and therefore have already a blend as such, or do they pick the grapes according to the variety they are?
So you're laughing because you probably know the answer. What happens in Portugal is that we have something called the old vines, and old vines are very ancient ones that can be, 80, 100 or more than that years old. And by that time, when they were planted, there was no selection of the grape variety. So people would just plant a vineyard, and they would have a mix of all the grapes in there, red grapes. And sometimes it would happen to have a field of red grapes, but some white grapes mixed up with all the others. So those are the old vines, and there you can have around 30 different grape varieties in one vineyard, and then you plant it, you harvest it all together. Nowadays with the modern ones, and when you know which grape you have, normally you can have either the blend field, what we call the blend field, which we harvest all together, even though we know which parcel is of which grape, but we just decided to take it all together to the winery, or we select to harvest each one at a time, and then we do the winemaking separately, and we blend afterwards when it's already wine.
Okay, it's probably actually a good activity for wine tourism. You can take them to the vineyard, and you can identify so many different varieties according to the bunches and the leaves. As a kind of exercise in the vineyard.
Yes, it's possible.
Right. So Francesca is asking: is Portuguese wine tourism is the Portuguese wine tourism website going to be working soon? I didn't know there was one. Is there going to be one?
There's, well, you have the Wine Tourism of Portugal, which is a reservation website, and it's working. And then you have some information in the website of Tourism of Portugal, and then you have other separate sites. Well, actually, namely my blog, you have some information. But if you go at least at Wine Tourism of Portugal, you have a reservation system where you can find most of the wineries there. It's not an official one. I mean, it's not an institutional one. I
see. Sophia's asking how many days would we need to do your wine tasting tour route from north to south?
So this one I just showed you, you can do. I would take 10 days to do it. I think you can take 10 days and get to see a little bit of Portugal. Yes, I would take 10 days in Portugal.
Right. I mean, I know it's obviously not on the 7-hour tour, but the Azores and Madeira. Could you just give us a quick 1 minute each on the destination, as how fantastic they are?
Exactly, of course. Yes, you cannot drive there, of course, but you can take easily a flight to Madeira. You take around 1 hour, and Madeira is composed by 2 islands. One is the biggest one, which is Madeira, and there definitely the most famous wine is the fortified wine Madeira, which is somehow similar to the port wine. So it's sweet, very alcoholic, very dense wine, but it's made out of white grapes. So they have this acidity of the white grapes and the weather, because it's in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, so it's very humid, and the grapes have a different way to ripe. But they also have the sweetness of a fortified wine, so the caramel flavors coming from the aging process. So Madeira wines is definitely the most iconic wine in Madeira, and you can visit a lot of wineries there. When it comes to the Azores, it's a group of 9 islands, which 4 of them produce wine. I would say that Pico is the most famous one, and Pico, the vineyards in Pico, is also just like just like Douro Valley. It's also considered a wine World Heritage Site by UNESCO because of the unique vineyard. The vines there, and I don't have here a picture, but please go online and check on the vines of Pico Island, because the vineyards are planted in small walls made of basalt, you know, the stone coming from the volcanic islands. So it's very black stone, and they make little walls to protect each one of the vineyards. And the wines there have a lot of acidity, the whites mostly. They produce mostly white wines, and a lot of acidity, very, very fruity wines. And of course, as their plant is so close to the sea, they also have that saltiness that makes it so unique, and it's delicious. So really worth going to.
Right, I've seen pictures of the Azores, looks fantastic. Keep meaning to go there on a holiday, but can never find a good price on the flights from Barcelona. So you have to change in Porto or Lisbon.
Yeah, you should come to Lisbon first and fly from Lisbon to São Miguel.
Yeah. Okay, so will we be offering any press fam trips? Well, IWINETC only does that when we do the event in a destination. So who knows? Could be in Portugal in 2021, later this year, of course. So Heidi, watch the space for where IWINETC will be in 2021. Anne is asking, could you say a bit about some of the fortified wines, especially white port, Madeira, and Cascavelos, please?
So I'll try to sum it up because I just wrote an article about it, and it's a quite long one, and there's a lot to talk about of each one. But well, maybe port you don't need it because you have a lot of information. But Madeira, I just told you a little bit about it. Just one curiosity. I don't know if we have anyone from the United States attending to this conference, but the independence of the United States was celebrated with a glass of Madeira wine. So that's an important fact. Regarding the other two, so we have port, Madeira, Muscatel wine, which is made out of the Muscatel grape. Again, this is a white grape, single one, and whereas the others, they blend the grapes, but in Muscatel, it's made out only of one grape. And it's produced either in the Muscatel region, which is in Setúbal, very close to Lisbon, or in Douro as well. And it's also sweet, very, honey and caramel flavors. And then when it comes to Carcavelos, it's produced very close to Lisbon, and it's, like I said before, it's the smallest wine region in Portugal with only 25 hectares. I think in terms of acres is somehow the double, so maybe about 50, 55 acres only of grapes, white grapes. And they also produce a very good fortified wine, sweet as well. And it's worth visiting because it's so close to Lisbon. When it comes to white port, it's a bit more recent than the red port, of course, but we have many brands producing it, really good quality. We have the young ones, which are clear color, like water, translucent, and we also have the aged ones, the reserved ones, which are delicious. The white ones became also famous because of the cocktail we created here in Portugal, which is called the Port Tonic. And Port Tonic is like the gin tonic, but using white port instead of gin. So try to do it at home. White port with tonic water and mint leaves, lemon, and ice cubes, and it's just delicious. And it's dry normally. You have the sweet white port and the dry white port. You just decide which one you want to use. I don't know if it's your question, but
you could put the link to your article on the chat so people can read the full story.
I will.
We can do that before we close down.
Oh, for now it's in Portuguese now, but I'm translating it anytime soon.
Okay. Got any ice wines? Sushma's asking.
We don't have ice wines. I don't know if we don't have enough snow for that, although we do have some snow, but it's not enough. We have the late harvest, which are very similar in terms of flavor, but we don't have the weather that allows it. We don't have many days of below zero temperatures, and it's not enough to produce white wine, so we don't have it in Portugal, no.
Okay. Sushma's asking again, got the impression that it's not a good place for vegetarians.
For the vegetarians, yes, because we do have a lot of vegetables. We cook a lot with cheese. We have great cheese and eggs. So for the vegan people, that would be a great challenge. But if you're vegetarians, don't be afraid. You can come to Portugal because we have a lot of options for sure. And soups, we eat a lot of soup. We love soup. Fun fact, Portugal, the McDonald's in Portugal has soup in the menu, has the muck soup because we eat it so much. So yes, don't be afraid of coming to Portugal if you're vegetarian.
Okay, and Pedro Mariano has posted a link to Vini Portugal, which is of course the organization which promotes wines of Portugal.
Well, Wines of Portugal institution, yes, and that's the institute responsible for promoting the Portuguese wines around the world. So they promote a lot of the Portuguese wines, of course, and the grapes. In terms of wine tourism, you'll find some information, but it's still not very, well, it's not their purpose. But yes, you can find a lot of information about the Portuguese wines for sure. Thank you, Pedro. And
County Travel from Sweden is inquiring about accommodation options in the Douro Valley. Are there any, excuse me, agroturismo type of accommodations?
Yes, most of the accommodation options you have there belong to families, so most of them are just their homes, and they have great accommodation as well. They're prepared to host guest houses. I mean, they're prepared to host visitors. You also have some small hotels, but it's not big, so that's why it's so charming. It's mostly boutique hotels and guest houses, but you do have a lot of options, yes.
Okay.
Remember to rent a car. It makes your life much easier if you're going to Douro.
Right, and careful in the Douro Valley, going up those slopes.
I know it by experience.
Quite hair-raising sometimes. Martin's asking which major city is closest to Alentejo wine region, and how long does it take to get there by car?
Okay, so in terms of airports, Lisbon is definitely the closest airport, or Faro or Lisbon, depending on the part of Alentejo, because Alentejo is actually a very big region. And if you're going to the north part of Alentejo, then you should go from Lisbon. And if you're going to the south part, you should take the Faro flights. The main cities in terms of airports, so it's Lisbon and Faro. One of the main cities in Alentejo region, which doesn't have an airport, it's Évora. A beautiful city you should visit as well in terms of history and culture. And again, it's a World Heritage Site by UNESCO.
Okay. Maria Jose is asking about which of the wine routes are the most active, let's say, or most developed in terms of orientating the tourist.
I would say Alentejo in terms of information, in terms of accesses, in terms of how to move from one winery to the other. I would say that Alentejo is very well developed. In Évora, in the city I was telling you about, you have the headquarters of the Wines of Alentejo, where you can look for a lot of information before you plan your visit. So I would say yes, Alentejo in terms of the whole country. Is the region.
And Setúbal are quite advanced, aren't they?
Well, it's very close to Lisbon, so it's very easy to get there. In terms of information, maybe it's not as complete as Alentejo, but yes, it's easy to drive around. Yes.
Okay, a question from Sushma again. Is it possible to show us the characteristics and bottles? No, but we can show you a glass of Portuguese red wine, I think. There we go. Cheers.
Well, cheers. But answering your question, well, sorry, if you toast, you have to drink. Otherwise, bad luck. But answering your question, it's very hard to describe the Portuguese wines in just a couple of words, because as you notice, we have 14 wine regions and we have 250 grapes at least. So all of the wines, and then we blend it. So we have so many different wines. You just have to choose which is your wine style. If you like it to be more full-bodied and alcoholic, if you like smoother and elegant, and then you just have to choose the region where to go. But I would dare to say it's really, really hard to describe the Portuguese wines in one word.
Right. Caroline is asking to spell the name of the island in the Azores, which that has the World Heritage Site.
Pico. So it's P-I-C-O.
Okay, easy one. That's going to be something.
And it means the top, or it's like a peak. You know, because there's this is volcanic islands, and in Pico there's an active volcano, and the volcano has a peak on top, and we call it Pico.
Okay, see, Pedro already answered her in the chat there. Another wine question: does all fortified wines age well, up to 50 years, in brackets like port? What are the best vintages to look for?
Wow, that's very complex. Well, in terms of port wine, there's a lot of different categories. It depends if it's a ruby, if it's a vintage, if it's a tawny, if it's a white, if it's a reserve, if it's, you know, there's so many different ones. And I think that the secret to keep a good wine for many years is how you storage it. So if you make sure that you're in good conditions, then normally the tawnies, the tawny wines, which are already aged in barrels, the oldest ones, you can definitely keep it for many, many years in good conditions. As for the rubies, normally they are made to consume a little bit sooner and not in a long time. So those ones don't age that well, but it's also possible to age. It also always depends on where you keep it. Not in the kitchen close to the oven or something like that. Don't do that.
Right.
Basement.
Website optimization specialist Judith Lewis is saying to Bruno about SEO. So if you do have a website and you want it checked with Judith, I'm sure she'd be delighted.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear it.
You can hear it. That's okay. Let's go to the next question.
Right.
Have a look if we've got any more here. So yeah, there's a big conversation going there. Here we go. Francesco, what would you consider is the current offer of wine clubs in Portugal? Do you have good examples?
Actually, I'm not very aware of that. That's a great question, Francesca. If I keep your email in your contact, I can get you a good list of it. There are many, I know, of Portuguese wines, but I'm not aware of names exactly. But you definitely have. Well, Pedro here in this chat, he actually has a good offer of wines. But in terms of wine clubs, I'll have to make some research to answer you properly. But I can keep your email if you want, or just email me, and I'll leave it out.
Okay, so that's all we have time for, because we have to shoot over to Greece now to discover Greece as a Grape escape destination. But before we go, we're going to. The answer was Douro, wasn't it? The poll question. So
yeah.
If you got that right, you'll get your special prize, which is kindly donated by Madalena. The slide presentation that you've just seen or saw partially. So you're welcome to download that. And I'm also going to, for those of you not registered for Greece and want to join, a direct link to the room. Let me figure out how to do it. There we go. So there's at the top of the chat, you should see a direct link to the next webinar room where we'll be greeted by Urania. So just leaves me to thank very much Madalena for being with us and preparing such a fantastic presentation. You can look at the comments and the high praise for it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Anthony, and thank you to IWINETC for this opportunity. Obrigada to everyone that was. And obrigado means thank you, by the way. Everyone right here. We're soon in Portugal.
Yes, and thank you everybody for watching in. As I say, if you want to join us for the Greece presentation, just click on the link, and we'll see you in the next session, which starts at 5 o'clock Central European time. Okay, that's it. Bye for now. Bye-bye.